You just tuned in to Up for Discussion. Hello. Are we there? Check, check, check.
Check, check, check.
Hello. There we go.
Are we there? Check, check, check.
So, all right. We are live. This is episode.
There we go.
Number 20. Do you think the audio
Once you get yours turned down, we'll start it.
would cooperate a little bit?
All right. So, this is episode number 20 of Up for Discussion. And tonight we're doing hot button topics. We called this particular episode Hot Under the Camo, which is what Lathan's going to be by the time this show's over.
Yeah,
So,
That's right.
Long sleeves.
yeah.
Don't you know it's hot out?
Couldn't
So-
resist. I found this awesome shirt today, so
It's a beautiful shirt, man. I'm proud of you.
I
I
think.
feel good about myself.
Well,
Yeah.
I think Mark Phillips has that exact same outfit.
That's right.
We know better than that, but
Yeah, Mark, if you want to purchase this, I'll make you a good deal.
Oh yeah, slightly used.
only slightly. Smells reeks of
Nathan.
mouse urine and no telling what else.
Yeah.
So,
That being said, it's not our mouse urine, it's the storage unit's mouse urine.
no.
No, I still.
That's
I would
the
go,
previous
yes,
owner.
I would say the previous owner.
Yeah.
What's it? 1986.
Yeah, it's probably been in a box since about 85, 86, maybe 87.
There you go.
Hot button, hot under the camouflage, huh?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some things that, and some of them we've touched on before, but others that I feel like people would be interested in. Things that probably have been in their minds, things that they've probably talked about around their tables at some point. And because of that, I think it has validity. We're going to talk about turkey hunting. We're going to talk about deer hunting. We're going to talk about maybe a little bit of politics. Yeah, we might go to some crazy places tonight.
Oh,
So,
boy.
if you guys are watching, make sure you like, share, comment. All those things help us out. Particularly tonight, if you guys comment, it would. We'd love to hear what you think about these things. We're going to talk about crossbows and talk about rifles and what that looks like, not only for our state, but what it looks like for other states. So while we're talking about these topics, if you guys have something that you want to, feel like is pertinent to the conversation, please include it.
Chime in.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
right. Because I feel like right now more than ever, the hunting community needs to band together in order to make our voice heard. Also band together in order to basically unify, to have a unified front in our state. Like, I think it's important.
Across the board, even.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Make hunting fun again.
There you go.
Well, there is an aspect too where, sometimes we see things that need to be changed. Like we just, it seems like there are certain laws, rules, whatever, that maybe need to be changed. And we might need at some point look into what do we do to try to affect change in some of those rules with our state agencies and stuff. Because, there are some things that, I just disagree with how things are done and, how they're organized or whatever. At some point it might be good to figure out what can guys do to effectively make some of those changes.
What are some changes that you feel like currently need to be made?
So and again, I'm just going to go out on a couple of limbs here, and there may be people that don't see this as an issue. I really feel like the micromanagement of county specific tags and 5 seasons for turkeys and the complicated manner by which we have to apply for tags for turkeys, for instance, for a resident not to be able to hunt all 5 weeks of the turkey season where he wants.
That's an interesting topic because honestly, that's really valid.
I mean, it seems ridiculous to me. There's places that I have that I can't even hunt because I didn't draw a tag for that season in that county And so I might have all the time off in the world, but I can't go do it because I got
Yeah.
a third season, not a fifth season, or a first, not whatever.
So you're not opposed to them limiting the number of tags?
No, oh, absolutely not. Like,
But
I just look at it like this: if we're going to have a turkey season, like everybody does, and it's going to be 4 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever it is, and if there's 3 birds allowed per person, make it a statewide tag that you just purchase, and you have your 3 tags or 2 tags or whatever that number is, and let us decide when we want to hunt and where we want to hunt. Because in terms of hunting, we can only legally hunt where we have permission anyway. So
Yeah.
them micromanaging that for us isn't necessary. People that don't abide by the rules are going to do what they want to do regardless of what the
Right.
rules say. But for the rest of the largely law-abiding, rule-abiding hunters out there, now they're restricted by this micromanagement and just the system by which we have to even get a tag. I think that if you're a resident, you should be guaranteed the privilege of those 3 tags. Just buy them, and it would be a lot less, it would seem anyway, a lot less manpower involved in issuing those permits if you just went to Walmart or whatever vendor, and you just bought your tags for the year.
why do you think they do that?
I'm not really sure. There's a possibility that early on, when turkeys were in a lot fewer numbers, reintroduced at
Yeah.
one point, they were probably concerned about not overhunting them where they were kind of bulked up and maybe in better numbers. Everybody would flock to that place, and maybe it would wipe them out. Or I don't really know. That's just a guess there. But they do the same thing with deer tags. Firearm deer tags. Apply for the tags. For the county, for the season, a second season option, or just a full season or
Right.
whatever. And again, why micromanage the whole thing? Just
I guess I don't have a major
Do you
problem.
understand the principle of government?
well, I get it.
One
So-
big micromanaging machine.
Boy, it is.
I don't have a major problem with the because you're saying you don't even like the county specific.
no, I mean,
Yeah,
because
because
really,
the archery tags are not that way for
statewide,
deer.
right?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, that's right.
but the gun tags are county specific.
Yes, for everything,
and, deer,
whether it be
and
turkeys,
all
deer, or whatever.
turkeys in the spring.
Yep, county specific,
specific.
season specific. They
I guess
break
I
out-
never thought I had a problem with that, but one of the reasons that I quit turkey hunting, there's a couple, but one of the reasons was the fact of that crazy way the season's laid out. The 5 seasons, and you're
It's
trying to.
aggravating.
For one, you're always like, which season's the best? You're
Right.
asking people. Well,
Right.
next year this one's better than this
Exactly.
one. Last year, it just
Exactly.
depends on the weather and the way things like that fall. But
Well, and that's the
I-
other thing with weather. It's like,
Yeah,
you
I
may burn
didn't-
your whole
I
season
didn't
out.
Correct.
love turkey hunting enough, and don't misunderstand me. I enjoyed hunting anything. I would enjoy going turkey hunting. I did enjoy, but I didn't love it enough at the time when I had very limited time, like
Right.
vacation times and
Right.
stuff like that. I didn't love it enough to take vacation, and then you get this third season tag, and you realize I've got Saturday.
Right. You got one day.
Yeah.
Right. And it rains.
Yeah, I've got Saturday to go. So I'm going to buy a tag and go turkey hunting on a Saturday.
Right.
Now that may work for some people, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No.
So I just kind of backed out from turkey hunting.
Yeah.
That was one of the main reasons because of the busted up
Yes,
seasons.
absolutely. Well, the best season to turkey hunt always is when I have time to go.
Yeah.
Like when I want to go.
Yeah.
And you just can't do that the way they've got it set up. And it's been like that for a long time. And I'm not just out there to try to buck the system and, just make a noise. I really feel like for me, it's just counterproductive. And I can't imagine that it's not for most people, to be that limited.
I wonder, you think there's anybody that, if anybody's listening that knows, like, I'm pretty sure this is why it's like that. Comment,
Right.
drop something in here and we can discuss that, because I don't really know other than what you said at the beginning, potentially. And that's a guess, right?
Yeah, that's only a guess. I don't
I
know.
wonder, I always thought, well, did they do that so that not everybody's in the same, out there at the same time? Because
Well-
turkey hunting is known to be one of the more dangerous.
Yes, because you're sounding like a bird,
You're
hiding in
full camo
camouflage.
with
Yeah,
guns,
yeah,
and you're
that's right.
sounding like what the other guy
Yeah.
wants to
Yep.
potentially shoot
I
at.
get
Generally,
that.
we're making hen sounds.
But I still fall back on you can only legally hunt where you have permission,
Right.
and not everybody else does. And the times that you can get time off from work to go. And so I still say that's all potentially valid, but
See, what greater way to get rid of trespassers? See?
hey,
Yeah.
where's he going with this?
I think he's saying make sure also that, hey, before you trespass over there in turkey hunt, you want this Pepsi for your break to drink. Have you heard that story about the guy that was turkey hunting and he decided he was thirsty, so he cracks a Pepsi? And what's the color of a Pepsi can?
Oh yeah.
Blue and red, and somebody
Yep.
shot him because they just
Yep.
saw blue and red.
Yep.
But hey,
Yep.
while you're trespassing, have a sip of Pepsi.
The mandatory Pepsi.
Got a Pepsi for me? What's that? Remember that commercial? You got a Pepsi for me?
Oh my.
Oh, I got a Pepsi for you.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to bring up is I feel like the turkey numbers are massively down.
They certainly have.
They have
been.
to be.
Yeah.
They have to be. Anybody that spends some time out there is like,
Yeah.
they have to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of that, my question is why, for one,
Mhm.
and what can we do to correct that? And is there anything that we as hunters can do to correct that beyond, working with legislation to try and get something changed?
Can I hit on that one a little bit?
Sure.
So one thing that I sort of noticed on a different stage sort of is we raise chickens. And the absolute biggest problem we have in keeping the chickens safe and healthy and alive are being raided by raccoons.
Mhm.
Keeping the raccoons out of the chickens, and they love to raid the nest and eat eggs.
Yeah.
And so
They're egg suckers.
after dealing with that for years and years and years, and noticing that our wild populations of raccoons are seemingly at an all-time high, and our turkey numbers the last, I'm going to call it 5 years especially, but even beyond that, seem to have been on a downward slope to I really feel like I came to the conclusion that our block over there, we've got several hundred acres that we kind of all use and
Yeah.
around where we live. We sort of took up doing a lot of coon hunting and predator hunting in general.
Yeah.
And I really feel like we have curbed some of that problem in that general area.
Well, I can say 3 years ago when I moved down there weren't hardly any turkeys.
Almost zero.
Yeah.
Almost zero. I turkey hunted it then, and it was almost a 1 in a million that you might get a turkey there, or even see or hear one. You just
So you're
didn't.
telling me
There's a chance.
Yeah.
Yes. But
I think turkeys are major. They're a major food source for
They
a
are.
lot of things,
everything eats them.
and because of that, the predator numbers have got to come down.
Yeah. But don't you feel like we've curbed some of the issue?
We have for sure.
Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, it's not just something that eats a turkey, but whatever eats their eggs is eating a turkey.
Yeah.
And so when something raids a nest, a bobcat, a coyote, a coon, whatever it is, and destroys a whole clutch of eggs, that is a dozen turkeys that won't be.
Yeah.
And
Well, it's one thing to kill the hen.
right.
It's another thing to kill all the eggs.
Right. And now,
So-
so you've got, and I really feel like, and guys may dispute the whole raccoon thing, but as we've discovered raising other birds, the raccoons were the biggest problem with keeping those critters alive.
Yeah.
Even to the point where we would not, so there was some question in the beginning. My wife would go out, we've got dead chickens, something got in. It's got it, was it coons? No, it's probably not. So I started putting my trail cameras out there to see what was actually
What it
going on.
was,
So we
yeah.
weren't guessing, because I
Yeah.
thought maybe a fox or a bobcat or something, whatever. And once in a while, one of those things would happen. But 99% of the time, it was coons. And
But even at that, what you just said is right. Maybe a fox, maybe a
Right.
bobcat, maybe a possum,
right,
maybe a coon,
right,
maybe a coyote.
right,
I mean,
all those
the
things.
list goes on and
Skunks.
on.
Right.
Skunks.
Minks.
Right. Oh, yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
name it, and what they've got, they want.
Yep.
So you know that if a chicken's dealing with it, of course, I'm sure they're after low hanging fruit, and chickens are that for sure, because
Yes.
especially if they get in the coop.
Yeah, if they figure out
But
a
at
way
the
in,
same
yes.
time, a hen sitting on a nest at
That's
night is
right.
low hanging fruit.
That's as
Yeah.
good as it can get.
and even if they don't get her, they get her nest, so
Yep.
they get 12.
Right.
I've seen almost 20 eggs in a
that's
nest
stacked
before.
in there. Well,
Yeah.
you know what'll happen is if you step close enough, she leaves
She
quickly,
leaves,
flies or runs,
Right.
and then a predator stands there looking down at a free meal. You pretty much can imagine what's about to happen. Those eggs are gone.
Yeah.
And so, because I've seen it walking just inadvertently. Oh, there goes a hen. She flies up, scares the heck out of you, flies up in the air and look down, and there's a
There's a
whole
nest,
bunch of eggs in a nest. And of course, my thing is get away from it as quick as I can because I don't want to disturb it. Well, if I'm a predator, my thought is, oh man, jackpot, eat those eggs.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that is a big factor for us. And I've heard guys say, "Oh, those coons don't mean anything for turkeys. They don't bother those turkeys." Well, a full grown
that.
turkey, maybe they probably don't wrestle with a full grown turkey too often. But those eggs are subject to their attack anytime.
Yeah.
I would think your adult birds are dealing with the coyotes and the bobcats, and probably even
especially, yeah.
foxes.
Yes.
I walked up on a fox den one time, and the babies were out of the den, little fellers,
Yeah.
And I was like, I looked at him over there, and I was like, "What's he got in his mouth?" It was a turkey head,
Huh.
little baby fox.
I remember
A
that.
little baby fox gnawing on
No
a turkey
kidding.
head. Yeah, I was
I
like,
remember you telling me about
Yeah.
that.
something.
Yeah.
I'm assuming
Mom
that
brought it back.
that mom caught
Yeah.
her a turkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
But I'm saying the eggs. Everybody knows that grew up on the farm that coons are egg sucking machines. I
Right.
mean, they will take the eggs, crack them. They know. I don't know. I'm assuming a coyote probably is too, because dogs.
I would think, yes.
are
I mean,
egg suckers.
But here's the problem with what we're talking about.
Yeah.
There's not a good solution to that problem, because we've done something in hunting that has crippled other hunting. And what it is no one wants to coon hunt anymore because they're worried that if
messing
their
up
dog gets
yes.
on somebody
Oh
else,
yeah, that's
Yeah.
nightmare.
they're
It's a
going to
problem.
be posted
Yes.
on Facebook that they're
Yeah.
a trespasser, even though they
Yeah.
can't determine what that
Yeah.
dog's going to do.
Right.
And not only that, but so we have no coon hunters because of that.
Virtually,
Right.
yeah.
Virtually, yeah.
But then we also have no coon hunters because the price of fur has
Right.
dove
Yeah.
because of liberal agenda.
Yeah. There's definitely.
So I mean,
yeah. No, that's right. That's right.
It- at every turn,
Yeah,
there's a problem.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's a perfect storm against.
It
Well, and
really
then
is.
then coons aren't worth nothing.
Yeah.
Coons are worth nothing.
Yeah.
30 years ago, we picked up coons off the road.
Because they
Like
had a
when me and
value.
Wes were in high school and we're
Right.
driving down the road, it's like, that's a pretty good sized coon. See how fresh he is. Is he
Right.
Oh,
is
Right.
the hide slipping on him? No. Throw him in the back, you
Yeah.
know. And we'd skid them out because you
Yeah.
could get
They were worth
oh,
something.
we were
25.
getting 15 to 25
Yeah,
bucks
for a
every
big rascal.
Yeah.
Well-
I mean, me and Lathan were running out in fields, stomping them down every chance we got. Like,
I
did you
mean,
see that coon run
Don't
front?
let that coon get away.
That's right.
We're running
So-
like-
So what we and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm maybe overstating or I've seen it a little different than you, but so about the time you built your house,
Yeah.
and you guys were there more permanently, or at least even while you were building your house, we started more aggressively predator hunting the area.
Drastically.
So, and then once you're there and living there, you're there. It's easy for you to make a 20-minute hunt after supper. Like you can just go hunt instead of when you were in Fairfield
Sure.
driving all the way down there, a 40-minute ride each way. It just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Or just very rarely. Well, once that started happening and we were hunting more like we probably should have been all along, our coyote numbers were way down. Remember how it used to be just about dusk? There would be dogs everywhere. They would light up and you'd think they always sound like 100 of them. It's
Yeah.
probably 5, but it
Yeah.
sounds like a bunch. Well, they'd be in every direction. And we don't hear that near as much.
See, it's an interesting thing. I'm saying coyotes on turkeys. I don't mean they don't
Mhm.
get turkeys,
Mhm.
but my guesstimation is, to the data that I've seen in my hunting, that coyotes probably aren't the huge problem with turkeys.
Not
I
with
don't
turkeys.
You can
These are
almost
either.
rule them out, because I'm telling you, in the last 6 years of calling coyotes, there's not as many coyotes.
Oh, for
Yeah.
sure. They're down as well.
And that's because of the technology and the craze of hunting them at night.
Thermals and all this stuff.
Yeah,
which it does
thermal
make
night
it
vision.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And I have
effective.
no problem with it. What do you
Yeah.
always say? Kill the killers, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
They need thinned out. It helps everything as far as helps the good stuff, helps the deer, helps the turkeys, helps the rabbits.
I think
all
you're
that
right,
stuff.
because if they were the biggest factor, as soon as their numbers plummeted,
The turkeys would flourish
Yes.
again.
and that didn't really happen.
No,
It did not.
but
Um,
we're talking about raccoon numbers are.
Oh,
And I don't know if this is
they're
a
at
hot
the highest
button.
it's been.
I don't know if this
Yeah.
is a hot button topic or not.
It is
but-
to me. It ticks me off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're any deer hunter can
By
tell you
definition.
that's hunted that puts in, let's say 25 sits at least a season's like there's a lot of coons out there.
Oh yeah.
You know, the suns just start dipping behind the trees,
And they're already
and
on
there's
the
black
move.
dots
Yes.
coming down,
rolling out of every
Yeah,
hole in every
yeah.
tree. Yeah.
So, and now we got armadillos.
Oh,
We do.
Have you been noticing how many are hitting the road?
Oh,
Like,
the
I'm seeing
armadillo
them
numbers
daily.
are up.
And
way
I'm
high.
guessing, I would just take a wild guess. They're grubbers and insect eaters. I bet they root right in. They're like a little hog. I bet they root right into a turkey nest.
I don't know. They don't
Yeah.
have the hardware to do what some other animals do, but that would be a good.
I'm not going to
research.
speak until I know.
Yeah, right. I just
Well,
don't
I'm
know.
just-
but you could
just-
be right.
Food for thought.
Well, if
I
you
don't
s-
know either.
If you see what they do root and leave.
They're like little hogs.
Yeah,
they
like little
root
hogs.
for
They-
grubs. And
Yeah.
so, if they root into a nest, I don't know. Do they eat it? Even if they don't eat it, do they root all
Right,
through it
and mess it all
disturb
up?
the old
Right.
hen and she leaves it? Because I
right.
just the other night when I left here, one crossed the road and I almost got him, but missed him.
Armadillo.
Armadillo.
Yeah.
No doubt, armadillo.
I've
And
seen 2 in the last week.
That's what I'm
So,
saying. It's
dead ones on the
Yeah,
road.
dead ones.
Yeah.
It's nearly daily now. If you're traveling much, you're going to see one in the road hit.
Yeah.
Which it's kind of strange. So that's really a new phenomenon now. I mean, it's not
Yeah,
been
those-
that long.
I've been
Um,
here my whole life, and this is the
Yeah.
last 4 years I've just started seeing them.
Now, isn't this kind of a strange thing? So we're talking about the numbers of this being down or that being down or whatever. If you talk to a predominantly non-hunter, they'll say, "What are you talking about? There's turkeys everywhere. There's deer. I see deer every time. I see turkeys everywhere. They're all over." And even some guys that farm are like, "Oh, well, there's more of them than they're eating my
Yeah.
stuff. They're doing this." But if you're out there sitting looking for those animals, I can just tell you the turkey numbers aren't what they used to be, and even the deer numbers in some areas aren't exactly the way I'd like to see them either.
You bring up an interesting point, Doug,
Mhm.
which takes me to another hot topic.
Oh boy.
And what
Hot
that hot
button.
topic is when suits make laws that pertain to hunting. People who have no idea what they're talking about,
Mhm.
who probably haven't hunted a day in their life, and who really their agenda is $1. And to me, there's a frustration in the hunting industry because of that. And how do we
I agree.
resolve that?
So I really feel like go back 20 years ago, say. I think most of your Department of Natural Resources guys in the field and guys making the rules were sportsmen, outdoorsmen.
Yeah.
There were people that hunted, fished, that they got into it because it was their interest. And I really feel like these days, I would like to know what the numbers really are, statistically, what percentage of people that are making our rules have any really,
Have ever stepped in a woods?
well, kind of, and
Have ever pulled a tick off of them?
right, exactly.
I mean-
So if that being said, if our rules are being made by other means where it's not people that are concerned about the animals themselves or the hunter's interests, but where money can be made, saved, or whatever, there's a whole different result for us as sportsmen. We're seeing rules made, and are they to our benefit at all anymore? And do we really have a voice at that level?
Yeah.
And then we go back to, how do we make those changes? Is it even possible?
I struggle with it.
I don't know it would be to my own fault that I don't know who's making our laws for us concerning um, hunting and fishing and all that stuff. But some of them, you're like, now it's obvious. It's obvious.
Well, it's easy to tell in regards to guns in general.
Yeah, it's
Like
obvious.
that is not pertaining to anything.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
even know. That don't mean nothing. That
Yeah.
don't help nothing. That don't,
Right.
or it don't even line up or make sense to some
Well,
degree. But
and we all see it in the state we live in Illinois, that it's not really a gun friendly state. Rules are pretty restrictive,
kind of,
to some degree. I'm just saying, like, there are other
Just
places.
call it what it is.
I would
man.
say
it's
massively. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
if you live in California or Massachusetts, you might
Maybe a
say,
little
well,
worse.
you got nothing. But
Pretty
as
close,
a rule, though, I mean, I think we are not, we know where we stand to our lawmakers in terms of, if we're a gun owner, we're really not a real priority.
Yeah.
And so that's putting it somewhat mildly, I think. But so some of those rules related to firearms in general, those rules aren't getting made for our benefit as gun owners. Not to get off, that's a whole topic we
Yeah.
could spend all
Well,
time
it's
on,
related, but what would be one? I was sitting here trying to think off the top of my head. What is a rule? We know some with guns that are just ridiculous. Can't
Well,
have
I mean,
can't have a Ruger 1022 with threads on the end of it.
Yeah, right.
Give me a break. But anyway,
we're
hey,
about to get
Yeah,
deep.
you know
into
what I
it,
mean?
man.
Tell us how you
That's
feel,
like-
Nathan.
give me a break. That's like stupid.
Well,
That's
you
like,
can't have one with a thumb hole stock.
yeah.
I mean,
it's like ignorance gone to
Yeah.
seed,
They're much more deadly.
reseeded itself and sprouted again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
well, those
that's
thumb
what
hole
that is.
stocks,
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
up and kill somebody.
Yeah.
They're scary looking.
If a gun's
That's
black, you better be
Yeah.
careful. So.
Make
that's
that
right.
gun more controllable. No, we don't want that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, but what's one with in the hunt? Like, I mean, obviously the one you're talking about when you started with the 5 seasons on turkeys. What sense does that make?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
In reality, what
other
does it really
than
do?
a guy's going to get a tag and it's going to rain his whole season and he's not going to get to go,
So
or he's not going to get to
right.
enjoy it like he would want
Well,
to
you-
if he could be like, well, I'll just go next week through better weather.
right, exactly, which would be great, that we could decide what we want to do with
But
our
what's
time.
what's
Well, we
another
were
one?
talking about drones earlier. I mean, right now drones are, huge right now in
Right.
regards to the conversation, because people are beginning to use drones for depending on what state they live in, they'll use them for scouting, they'll use them for finding where the deer are, they'll use them
Right.
for recovery. I mean, literally for even hauling out the
Yeah,
animals.
I've seen those
now.
videos. That's
unreal.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah,
A
Have you seen
drone-
them haul out
Yeah.
the elk?
I seen.
It's
I saw a deer.
unreal.
They did an elk.
Yeah.
Yes.
An
That's
elk.
That's got to be quite a drone. And what would that cost roughly retail? Because
I don't know, man, but it'd be worth it.
yeah, I think so.
So,
If they'd come get your elk out for what, $700, I'd be like,
Let
here
me
you
tell
go.
you, if it was 700 each, I think I would sign up.
and here's the thing. There's certain things that you can tell me the reason for this is this.
Right.
And I'll be like, yeah, I get that.
And makes sense.
yes. And there's other things that I'm like, that's a line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
for
with
instance,
the drone, go
well,
ahead. Go
well, for instance, so for them to tell us you can't use the drone because it's invasive to the animal population.
Right.
This is coming from the same people who will go up and eradicate entire populations
Right.
out of counties
Right. Instead
Like-
of letting hunters do it.
instead
Right,
of letting hunters do
exactly,
it.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
like, let's at least be legitimate on what the argument is.
Exactly. And that by that same token, you can take a drone recreationally and fly it wherever you want within reason. Not over,
The Pentagon.
right. but I mean, as
Better
far
not
as,
do that.
so if you wanted to go out to your 40, say, wherever that is,
Yeah.
and fly your drone around for fun, you can do that. As long as it doesn't have anything to do with deer hunting, you can do it. So as far as the disrupting the animals, I don't buy that one bit, because you can still do it every day of the year as long as it's not technically hunting. You're not using it for purposes of hunting. So, so do your intentions change how much it spooks the deer? Do they know what your intentions are when that flies over?
Is that how it's written in one of the laws that it's disturbing?
Yeah, it's basically,
disturbing wildlife,
Wildlife,
harassing,
yeah.
wildlife,
Harassing,
yeah.
What about the crop duster that
Right.
gives them a, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
a
coats them with
10-foot,
something. Yeah.
yeah, a 10-foot flyby.
and not only that, but so you take this drone out for them to come along and say you were using for that purpose. That's totally subjective.
Right.
Yeah, keep talking
You don't-
about that, and Ronald, elaborate on what this stupid bobcat law is.
Yeah, we'd like to
We'll
hear
keep
about
talking and
Yes.
see if you can elaborate a little bit in the comments, and we'll
Yeah.
get to that.
So-
Yeah,
so-
that's a good one.
If I take my drone out and let's say the DNR comes along and says, hey, you were using that for that purpose.
Yeah.
How do I argue
Yeah.
otherwise?
prove or disprove what your intentions were?
How do
Right.
they argue otherwise?
Right.
Like, what if I was wanting to go out and
Right.
check and see what
Right.
my trees were looking like
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
the year.
right,
They
right.
don't know.
Yeah.
Looking at
Yeah.
the center of the crop field or something.
I mean, it's different if
Checking
you're
for
setting.
circles. Crop circles.
Yeah,
circles.
it's different if you're setting on
Pineapple
somebody
rot.
else's. Gosh, it's different if you're setting on somebody else's property that
Right. But I'm
But-
just saying, for that whole thing is, it's kind of absurd. And
It really is.
there's things that we get used to in this state, the restrictions that we're under, for instance, and because of guys that will hunt with us sometimes in the fall, where they live, your bow doesn't have to be in a case when it's in the car. So they come, a lot of times they'll show up.
Yeah.
They don't even have a case for their bow.
That's a stupid law.
It's totally ridiculous. And so they get here, and then I've got to inform them, hey, you've got to get a case somewhere. I'll loan you one or something. They look at me like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why would you need a bow in a case in a car? If I was going to poach, I wouldn't be using a bow to do it. Like, when that's crazy. And
yeah, it's not the weapon of choice.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
not. It's just ridiculous. But we've gotten so used to that we just do it. And even a lot of states, the way we have to case our firearms to carry them, their rules are not that way.
I think it's silly that you have to case your gun.
Yeah, but we're dealing with that.
Yeah.
It's suits making hunting laws.
Remember when we were in Georgia with the twins, Russell and Brad, turkey hunting, and we went to move? He's like, let's run down the road to this other property or the edge of the property we're on or something like that. And we're the boys from Illinois, we got to the truck and we're like
Packing everything up.
Yeah,
shucking
started
shells
kicking
out of our
shells out.
shotguns and casing. And they said, what are you guys doing?
Are you quitting?
Like, no, I thought you said we're jumping in the truck. He said, yeah, just here, lay your gun on top of the case in the back, leave it loaded. He said, what if we see a turkey? I was like,
I
well, when you
love
come
that.
to Illinois, we just went ahead and told them, when you come to Illinois,
Yeah.
say if you're going to, because they were going to come up and deer hunt with us. and
You
you're
go to
gonna-
jail for
Make
that
sure
one.
your pocket knife is cased.
Yeah.
You got that in the sheath? Is it over 6 inches? Because isn't that a rule?
Yeah, there is a blade restriction. I
Oh,
don't.
my
Yeah,
word.
there is.
Yeah, you're not supposed to be
Yeah.
packing in your
That buck,
vehicle.
that big buck knife that years ago was pretty. You're not even supposed to do that.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous.
It's like,
But
They don't want to know what I think about that.
yeah. There's so. Let me just see.
well, anyhow, I guess obviously that hits all of our nerves because a bunch of those just don't make no sense,
It does.
and it's frustrating. But I go back to what I was saying a while ago. Some of it's my fault. I've never studied and seen how some of those laws come down the pike.
Right, and that would be
How-
good to know, right?
you know.
Like, and how do we make? How do we?
But I
affect
can
them?
look at it and say, whoever made that, it like you said, is probably never been out
Right.
hunting.
Right.
Now that being said, I think some states apparently handle it better than others.
Oh,
I
for
think
sure.
so.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's funny. You just cross the line and everything changes.
Yeah.
But and I don't know.
Either way,
Yeah.
like you can pretty much go any direction from Illinois and things get better.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
things get better economically,
yes.
things get better hunting.
Yeah.
I mean, you name it, and things pretty much get better when you cross the rivers.
That's
Easy.
JD. I'm gonna just say, somebody we know and love used to call it the People's Republic of Illinois when he
Yeah.
when he'd come over here. It was all the silly rules that in Missouri, where he lives, he didn't really have to deal with, and so
Oh yeah,
you know,
it's what you said. When those out-of-staters come to
Yeah.
hunt with you, you're like, oh, you can't do that.
yeah,
Well, why?
yeah.
Because that don't make no sense that I can't do that.
And I can't even argue that point because it doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense.
it's
Like
just,
there's,
it is what it is.
The
But-
people who made the law can't argue the point. They can't tell you why.
but they're not having to, because
That's the
if
problem.
you surround yourself with the correct crowd, you don't have to answer for that. If everyone in the room agrees with you, you don't have to answer for those decisions, and so you just move on.
I disagree.
You know, see what we got here.
Yeah.
Let's move on. So one of the things that I've got down is crossbows and rifles. Now, here's the deal. We are really taking our aggression from an area that is towards the state or towards our government and turning it almost towards other hunters. So we've got to be careful on this because it's not really meant to be that, but it could easily come across that way. And so my question is, what role do crossbows and rifles play in hunting in general?
So,
Or should they even play a role?
well, so initially, I think there was. I got to be careful how I do this. So
This is a tough one. isn't
it is. So
I'm trying to think how I want to word it.
that's why.
So you go first.
Okay, I'll come first. If I mess it up, you fix it. Okay.
And
So here's the thing. I say in the beginning, crossbows, for instance, if you were over 60 years old or had a disability that could be documented by a doctor, you could use a crossbow in the beginning with the crossbow rules in our state. Now, every state's different. And then little by little, they freed up those rules to where anytime after second gun season, then everyone could use a crossbow. And then the next step was anytime archery season was open, you could use a crossbow and everybody could do it. And there was you didn't have to have any particular thing. So in the beginning, I think there was a purpose that it got people that just couldn't do it any other way physically into woods that still could enjoy hunting. And I'm certainly not opposed to that in any way. But now I'm not.
But wouldn't you say that that kind of could still be the argument?
Oh, it certainly can, except that we all know that the numbers of people using crossbows, for instance, is a lot more than people that are disabled.
It is, but I mean that it brings more people into hunting.
Maybe, but this is what I think really happened. It took people that hunted 3 days during shotgun season and opened up the opportunity to use a weapon all year long. Now, again, I'm not against any of these people that do this, but I'm saying this is what I believe did happen.
Yeah.
Is it opened up a season, I say call it 3 months instead of 3 days, where they can take a weapon that's similar in feel to a gun. It's not a gun, but it's similar in feel to a gun. It doesn't take a whole lot of practice to be really deadly accurate with it, and they can hunt. So I don't know if it brought more people or if it just changed what the people were doing that were hunting already.
I see that. I see what you're saying. I was getting ready to say, I don't see what you're saying, but I got with you. Yeah,
So-
because it may not have changed the number of hunters. It just made the same number that wouldn't bow hunt either for a lack of, I'm not going to master a bow. or
But I
take
can
the
do
time,
that. Right.
But I can pull a trigger. I can
Right.
get behind a
Right.
scope and pull the trigger.
Yeah. I mean, what do you
And
think?
it took
Wes?
that same group that was just hunting that 3-day gun season
Right.
and made it where they're hunting all through.
Here's what I think. I think you've got to be fluid in decision making. I think it's possible that their mindset was, we're doing this for the sake of bringing more people in, inclusion.
Making money.
Yes, for sure. For the purpose of making
yes,
money, but
yes.
still for inclusion.
Yes. But but those are dollars.
However, numbers don't show that. At an all-time low in regards to people hunting.
Right.
Like numbers on hunters are going down.
Right.
And if it was simply for including more people and bringing more people in,
Yeah.
then research should show that it did that.
Right.
And if it doesn't, you
Right.
need to figure out some things.
Right. Maybe that wasn't a good decision. Now,
Yeah.
don't expect those things to ever get put back the way they were, because generally it
Well,
doesn't
they
work
just
that way.
don't.
They
Yeah.
just don't. But so, and that's great. I'm okay with whatever, but I think that if the attempt was to bring more people in, different people into hunting in general, I don't think that was successful.
I don't either.
I do feel
I don't
like
think that argument could be made.
no, I don't think so.
If it is, it's so well.
It would be a small
Well, I mean, it says no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
The data
now
says no.
there are some things though that are kind of nice, like so my daughter would have to work hard to build strength to shoot a vertical bow well enough to hunt with, but she could pick up a crossbow and she could hunt today. There is something to be said for that with the kids and stuff. And so again, I don't I think
I
there
don't
is
disagree with that. I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I have to be so careful. I'm like, there comes a time when it's like, give them something to work
toward.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, and if you hand them the easy route, ain't that where we are? That's where we've got the whole world to where we
It
are
really
today.
is.
Here's the
Yeah.
easy way.
Yeah.
You know, I
Like-
always tell that story of my dad. I wanted a bow hunt so bad. My parents got me a bow, and it was back in the day. They didn't know nothing about bows,
Right.
and they handed me a man's bow in the 6th grade.
Right.
And it's like, here you go in May.
Yeah.
And I grabbed it, and I was so excited, and I could pull it 2 inches.
Right.
And my dad looked at me and said, well, I guess if you want to hunt with that thing in October, you're going to have to figure out how to draw it
That's
back.
right. You better learn.
You know?
Yeah.
So, but then I say that, and I picture all these young kids getting to go out here and shoot a crossbow to deer and how excited they are. And I don't want to take that from them either.
No,
So
no.
it's like, what do you do?
Yeah,
It's not, and it's, I don't bring we don't bring this discussion up because we're like, this needs to go away. We're just discussing it.
Yeah.
Right. These are the sides of this coin. You know,
It's up for discussion.
yeah, it's up
Yeah.
for discussion. And I mean, I guess initially the crossbow thing, because I love shooting a vertical bow so much. To me personally, the crossbow thing was a little irritating. I didn't care for it. And it's not because it was based on some facts or some, any real reason that I just love doing what I do so much. I was like, man, crossbow. Oh, that isn't even fun to me. The
Yeah.
idea of it isn't even fun to me. So, so there's some bias there on my part.
I mean, I'd be biased too.
You know,
Obviously, I'd be
I mean,
biased.
I
know.
think I would probably have a different opinion on crossbows if they weren't treated like bows.
Right.
If they treated crossbows more similar to what a shotgun is.
So you mean have their own season?
They need their own season. They need something that, because here's the deal. We're all the time playing this game with animal numbers and making sure that we're still stewarding the herd.
Yeah.
And because of that, if you go out and you do mass kills, it's never good.
Right.
And like, we're not seeing that, but we're not seeing that because number of hunters is coming down.
Yeah,
Not because people aren't killing, because
Right.
right now it's easier to kill than it's ever been.
Right. We're more effective at what we do as hunters than we've ever been in history, in every respect, in
Yeah.
the knowledge that's available, in the weapons that we use.
The technology used.
Yes, absolutely. So, there's no question that we can affect things more as hunters than we ever have in the past while in the field, because we just, the things we have, and, we can pick up that phone and learn anything we want to learn about a particular topic pretty quick.
Yeah.
And, it doesn't mean we're an expert, but we can at least know if there's a question about, does this work? Does this not work? What is this all about? We can look and find it. So we have at our fingertips a lot of information. So we have even guys that typically might not be considered a great hunter can look up. They can have the information that we have mechanically, so to speak.
Sure.
Where what took you years or decades to learn.
It's still taking me.
Yes, I
Like,
mean
I'm
we
still
all. I mean,
learning.
yeah. And if you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
And so so we have that.
Did
So
you hear that, Lathan? You're not doing it right.
I,
You looked at me when you said that.
I mean, I just glanced.
No,
it,
yeah.
it wasn't as but
So-
anyway.
Yeah. So your opinion would be, with the crossbow, take the crossbow, give it
And
an
throw
allotted-
it in the garbage.
No,
I'm just
give
kidding.
it an allotted time, because if you treat it just like a bow, it's not.
It is not.
It's not a bow. You don't
Like
have
the
to draw it.
capabilities are not the same. The
You know.
requirements from the hunter are not the same.
No.
So
No, there's no torque issue.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you can take the stabilizer muscles of being able to hold a bow on target and
Not
and
needed.
not needed, because you can shoot off of a steady ready or
Yeah.
a stick or
Mhm.
a shooting bar or a lead sled
or Doug's
or
shoulder.
Doug's.
Yeah.
That could be a little dangerous.
Remove the ear.
Yeah.
You didn't need that ear anyways.
Just a little off the
Clearly
top.
not. Yep. There's not much there to start with.
But
Uh,
when you put them in the same season, you're ultimately saying basically they're the same thing,
yeah.
and they're not. So what do you do? Obviously, you let anybody. I think Miss Angie said, great for her father-in-law after he'd had surgery. Obviously,
Yeah.
And
And do you say, all right, kids can use them until they're 12, 13?
I don't
Till
know
they're
what
a
the answer
teenager?
is.
I
And,
don't-
and here's the thing. I want to make sure that people understand, like Angie has responded in regards to it. And Dale Martin said any legal weapon that keeps someone in the woods is a good thing.
Yeah.
I 100%
Yeah,
agree.
I don't disagree with that.
But my argument is it keeping them from the woods?
Right.
Like, is not using a crossbow what's keeping them from the woods? Because if it is, all about a crossbow. But I also worry about everything doesn't have to be easy.
Right.
Sometimes there
Well,
needs to be a hunt.
And
that
everything has a
happens.
season. Our muzzleloader guys are restricted to a season. Our firearms guys are restricted to a season. The bow guys are restricted to a season. It wouldn't be a bad thing that the crossbow guys had their specific time frame. Again, we actually get into a bad situation. What we're doing right now is we're micromanaging the individuals, like we just complained about the government does to us.
I agree.
And
I
so
agree.
there's
I really ultimately just want to make sure that there's open conversation about these topics, though.
absolutely.
Because if somebody comes in and buys a crossbow from us, I'm not upset about it.
No.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that they're out there hunting.
Yep.
But if someone who, to me, I wonder if they're missing out on an experience that, if it doesn't change it, I guess.
Oh, there's no question there.
Well, there might be to that person.
I'm sure it is to that person.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
some guys is like, I don't want to shoot a bow, but I don't mind shooting a crossbow.
I've never owned a crossbow, but I have used crossbows, that people had and said, "Oh, try this." And it's fun to do. I mean, I don't, but as far as hunting with it, I think maybe 2 or 3 times ever in my life I had a crossbow in my hands in the woods when, hunting with it. And to me, it wasn't near as much fun as when I had my bow. That's just me.
Yeah.
There may be people that say, I don't care about that bow. I just want to go in the woods. If I can take this thing, I'm going to take it. And
Yeah.
that's okay too.
Well, I think another argument that can be made is we know someone who, towards the end of season, they were trying to kill a specific deer and they weren't getting close to it. And because of that, they were going to switch over to a crossbow. I wonder what it does to the deer herd because of that. Like,
Right.
I mean, all of these questions I feel like are at least valid questions to ask.
So I'm going to throw something that's the other side of the equation on
Sure.
the crossbow thing, just in fairness. So when the crossbow regulations opened up, a lot of guys that bow hunted with me, or no, I shouldn't say that. A lot of guys that hunted with me, a lot of them were gun hunters, decided that they would then hunt during bow season with a crossbow because it was an easy transition.
Yeah.
And so I was a little concerned that we were going to have to be a little more careful with our harvest plans because our success rates were going to soar with guys with weapons that had greater range and better accuracy and easier use. And what I found was, surprisingly to me at the time, and this is still true today, is our success rates were down in terms of clean kills on deer with crossbows over vertical bows. And I quickly understood why. Guys were treating it like it was a rifle, and they weren't ranging the deer. They weren't waiting for a good angle. They weren't practicing with it to know where it hits at that 70 and 80 and 90-yard shot. And I've got guys that are taking shots that they don't know they can make. And so there is an aspect of it not being a magic weapon, because if you don't take care of it, now if you're diligent with it, they're lethal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
And I bet that's true.
I mean, that's what I
of people, for one, they're cumbersome and not fun to shoot, to practice with.
right.
You know what I mean? It's like the sequence on some of them that you got to go through to get them
Just to
drawn,
get it
cocked,
Yeah.
and then shoot. And then some of them don't have a long lifespan.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you start stacking shots up on them, you're like, oh, I got 300 shots. Now it's time to spend $200 on strings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's probably guys that don't master that. They don't master that weapon.
Yeah.
Just like with a gun, it's if a guy picks up his gun the night before gun season and goes out, he'll probably kill, but he is more apt to not.
Right.
Or,
Well,
or
you're right.
thump one bad
Yes.
because he
Which
hadn't
is even
shot.
worse than missing.
He hadn't shot 6, 7, 8 boxes of shells, and he hadn't shot at 100, and he hadn't shot at 50, and he hadn't shot at 150.
Yeah.
And he's just going to go out there and bounce a laser off the side of a deer and be like, he's 125, I'm going to send it, and wonder why he blowed the
Maybe it
bottom
sticks.
of the brisket off of him
Yeah.
and couldn't find him, or something like that, because he hadn't mastered that. And you can still miss when you master
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
but it's gonna the numbers are gonna go down
But
on the misses.
wouldn't you rather have a lesser weapon with lots of practice and I would rather a lesser weapon with precision than the better weapon with lack of preparation. If a guy is diligent and he gets good with the lesser, whatever weapon that is,
Yeah.
I'd rather have that guy with me any day than a guy that just picks up a better weapon and doesn't practice and doesn't know the weapon.
I'd say so. Yeah.
So we've got a couple of people that have commented in. Do you think Fred Bear had these same concerns when the compound bow came out? And I would say, yeah, he probably did.
And then he made $1 million.
Then he made $1 million. That's what I was going to say.
But
he
I
started cranking out the whitetail legend.
But I guarantee you, initially, his thought
yes.
was, "Man, what's that going to do? Is that
Yeah.
I wonder if he did. That's a question someone that knew him personally might be able to answer.
Ted, where are you?
But there's a good chance he didn't,
I don't know.
because
It'd be
I think he
interesting to
was.
know.
From what little I've watched all this stuff, watched all them old videos, and
Which are
listened to him
awesome.
talk are
Yeah.
awesome. And he was just passionate about
hunting.
Outdoors, and
the
shit.
outdoors and archery in general.
Yeah.
He just
And I
loved
think
it.
for us,
But he
that's one
could've.
thing I want to be careful about. I don't want to put off a persona that I'm looking down and judging on someone because they
Right.
do that. Like that's not necessarily what I'm going for here.
Yeah.
But what I do want to do is at least have the conversation that is going on in other people's heads.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that I know personally that they despise crossbows. They despise the fact that people are out there hunting with rifles.
Yes.
They hate that
Yeah.
because they think that is going to absolutely
Yeah.
destroy the herd.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of argument there.
Yeah.
Because
But
there's places that deal with it.
there are.
Yeah.
But with that being the case, we at least need to be able to have conversations as outdoorsmen
Right.
to say, okay, if that is the case, what do we do to correct that? And what because ultimately what we're supposed to be is stewards. Like biblically, we're supposed to be
Right.
stewards,
Right.
So
Well, and the other thing is, if it isn't the case, then why are we arguing about it?
Yeah.
If it makes the big impact and it is a real problem, we deal with that. But if it isn't, leave it alone. And there's a lot of variables there, but some states will limit public land use of certain weapons.
Yeah.
They might be shotguns only on public land, but on private land you can use a rifle or whatever that may be. Where hordes of people can gather on a public piece of property, they don't allow all the things that they would allow a person to do on private land. And I'm not necessarily saying that that's a bad thing, because maybe that is is a safety thing too to maybe consider. But there are certain aspects of that where some of that might be taken into account on some public lands.
Well, speaking of that kind of gives us a good transition, because Aaron Costin mentioned, I think an equal important point here is limiting the bucks. I'd like to see Illinois become a $1 state, no matter the weapon, or even better, let's just do what Iowa does. Let's carbon copy their regulations. And
which isn't a $1 state.
It isn't, but they do a great job
Yeah.
at managing,
They do.
I feel like the people that made their regulations probably weren't just suits.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm wrong.
So I kind of disagree with that.
Okay.
With the Aaron Costin line of thought. I agree with him on most things, however. So this will be one of the few things. And I'll tell you why. So, and again, there's maybe people that disagree with me, but when I think back to some of the great hunting we had when we were younger, before there was even a $2 limit, we had great hunting, lots of deer, and it seemed like we saw more bucks when we were in the woods. And our number, what some people would consider even out of control in some areas, and whatever, but it seemed like the hunting was more entertaining with the number of animals that we would see. We have fewer deer now, and everybody is concerned about balancing the deer herd and all these key catchphrases you hear about buck to doe ratios and all this stuff. And some of it's valid, but I'm just saying there was a time, say in the 90s, we had a lot of bucks running around. There was a lot of deer. Now we have managed certain properties into deer factories now, but those are isolated to the people that have use of those properties primarily. But I'm just saying across the board, I'm not so certain that the $1 limit is going to help us if some of the other rules don't change. And so I don't know if that alone really is a factor.
So I disagree. I would be a proponent for the $1 rule. Like, I would say this though, I would be fine with kill a buck. If you want another buck tag, you need to kill a doe, or something like that. But to say that it doesn't carry any weight, I don't agree with that. And here's why. I feel as though anytime you're opening up the numbers that guys can take, that's a problem, or potentially could be. And I also look at it, and I see where you're coming from in regards to there's other problems that contribute to it. I mean, to me, check-in stations are a major. I miss the days of the check-in station.
I thought it was fun.
I did too.
I think it helps curb
some of the rule breaking,
the breaking of the rule.
Well, and it's almost like nostalgia too. Like, I remember as a kid going to the check-in station and be like, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Get your butt.
It brought people around to, it was almost like a watering hole where everybody told their story and told,
it was fun
how the hunt went down.
Yeah.
And I think we missed that.
And and just practically
it kept things
it kept
honest.
certain people from fudging.
It did.
And I know you're out there, and I know you hear me, and I know you fudge.
Well, there's
you can stick that tag back in your wallet.
Yeah. When
you don't even have to punch our tags.
Yeah. The system is set up is not good for growing deer numbers. It just isn't.
Yeah.
No.
When you look at the fact that people if they get it to their home, they're gold.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
And
and
it's
I
not
hate that
illegal
that's the case.
to have that tag on his leg and not have him called in, right? You got till 10?
No,
Of the day you shoot at 10 p.m. of the day
you
harvest.
can't travel with him though, correct?
Well, the tag in our state, the tag has to be applied to the animal upon recovery.
Recovery.
And then it has to be checked in by phone or by computer by 10 p.m. of the day of harvest.
So you can get it to your house.
Oh, yes.
Well,
You can drive it to
so
your
we
house.
could be wrong. We could be wrong because we didn't do the research before we started.
Yeah, on that, I'm sure.
You're
'Cause,
positive.
Well, we have to do it with our clients. Like, there's,
Yeah.
those rules are.
So you can
for sure.
you can zip tie that tag on that
apply
deer.
the tag to the animal
drive
immediately.
home.
It says immediately upon recovery.
Right.
So you're not supposed to move the deer until the tag is physically applied to the deer, either the leg or the head tag. And then you have till 10 p.m. of the day of harvest to report the deer.
So you have until 10 p.m. to cut it up and make sure it's gone.
And hide it. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, essentially,
yeah,
that's
I
the
mean,
rules that we're talking
yeah.
about. That it's like,
yeah, kind of
who
silly.
made this stuff
Yeah,
up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
used
right.
to they were sticky tags, and when you
Yes.
pulled it,
Yeah, you tore it apart. Yeah, there was. there was no hiding.
there
that.
was no getting it back off and putting it back
Yeah,
on the
that's
paper.
right. And then, of course, at the
So
check
by
station,
that, and that lends to the rule.
yes,
Tag him as soon as you find him.
yeah,
So you pull a sticker off,
Yeah.
you stick it around his leg or you stick it around his antler because you're like, I'm coming out to the truck with this thing and he's got to be
Yes.
legal. And
Yes.
you should want to do that.
yeah.
So you did that. And then you had to go check him
Check
in.
station, get the steel tag.
And
put
even
on.
if you wanted to be like, I got him to the house now, you can't pull, you know how those
No.
stickers are.
Oh,
I've
no.
got I've got antlers from,
good luck getting that thing
19
off. Yeah,
well, maybe early 2000s that still have that sticker
Yeah,
on the
they're
antler.
still stuck together.
Yeah. So I mean,
yeah.
it fixed it curbed it anyway.
It curbed
Yeah.
it.
Curbed it.
So
And the way we do it now curbs it the other way.
It does.
Curbs it to where
It
it's like
encourages it.
Well,
it's like
when you're on your own
I know you're out there.
recognizance to check
We
check
see
these things,
you.
we know you exist. And I mean, to what degree that happens, we don't know, but it definitely happens.
Sure it does.
I mean,
Sure.
I mean, it
I
definitely.
mean, if a guy, was name drop. Well, I don't want to say his name, but the guy that they finally just
yeah,
the
yes.
world record.
Yeah,
It's finally, I guess, finalized.
hit him with actual charges.
that
Well,
he,
I mean,
that he poached the
that's not
deer.
name dropping. That's just reality. of
Right.
it,
Public
you know?
information now.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
public information. If a guy will do that on a deer that when you bring that deer home,
Yeah.
that deer is a noise maker,
Yes. Yeah. You're not getting by with
then
that.
a guy
Dude.
will bring a deer home and be like, all I have to do is cut the zip tie,
Yeah.
stick it back in my wallet, make sure there's no residue blood on it and all that, put it back in my wallet. He's in the freezer, man. And granted, you can still get in trouble for that being in the freezer, but how many people get in trouble for back straps in their freezer?
Right.
How many tickets
Well,
do the game warden write every year for
Yeah.
back straps in the freezer
Not
that don't have a
many.
tag?
No.
And
I'm
that's
sure
a-
there's a few, but not.
Again, suits making laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to have all that meat gone by the next year.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you don't, that's wrong.
Yeah. Possession
Yeah.
limits are foolish to me, honestly. Well, you talk about
I
fishing
don't throw the word
regulations.
stupid around lightly.
Boy,
but-
tonight you have that.
Yeah, but think about what
I'm in
we're
good
talking
company.
about.
Yeah.
We're talking about people who are trying to make money off of it,
Yeah.
and they're doing it in a way that
Yeah.
diminishes. It's a diminishing return.
in the
It's
long
never
term,
going to yield
yeah.
in the long term.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, there ought to be someone who comes along and says, hey, it might be smart for us to change some laws in order to protect the animal that is really providing us with the money that we
The
get.
state with the money. yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're
Don't
causing.
expect
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Drink a sip of coffee.
we should have to notch tags. Like before that,
That's a good sip.
before
you see what he did?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
You got in trouble for it.
before that deer goes in a vehicle or on the hard road to be transported, your tag should have to be notched.
Punch the date. It used to be like, well,
In some
Some
states, it
states,
is.
yes.
Yeah, some states, but in
punch out the
Illinois you don't
dates.
have to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
if that, and people's like, well, what do you mean notch a tag? Well, when you notch that tag, you can't put the notch back.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
the tag is,
Yeah.
what would you call it? Deformed
Yeah.
in a way that a person
Some of the-
realizes this tag has been used. So you can't stick it back in your wallet, put the deer in the freezer, and go shoot another one. That means there's guys, there's guys out there that's hauled 3 and 4 and 5 does to their freezer on the same tag.
Well, here's the
Mhm.
thing. It's totally not necessary because they issue doe tags almost not anymore endlessly, but for a while.
Yeah,
it
but
was.
they have to buy it.
Yes.
That's what he's
That's
saying.
why.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, yeah, there's there are ways around everything, I guess.
Yeah.
Josh wants to know about skipping a season.
That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
That's one
Do
of
you
the-
want us all to cry
Yeah.
now?
Hey, what is your word tonight? Stupid.
And maybe he means something other than the
Yeah.
whole season, like
Yeah.
second gun season, doing away with it.
Explain
One season.
yourself, Josh, because I don't like what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
If you're gonna say outlandish things, you better have something to back it up, man.
Oh, don't worry. Any minute now.
Defend yourself.
Let's-
Secondhand lion.
I'm gonna cock it and send it.
Maybe it'll stick.
Yeah. What's the next one?
All right. So the last
Well,
one.
we didn't cover rifles.
We kind of did with crossbows. The
yeah,
arguments
we
are
don't
the
want to.
same.
We don't want to beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
So
Well, if you have to go with the rifle.
my next thing is
Stop.
stupid.
No,
I'm
I
just
knew
kidding.
where that was
Just
going.
kidding. Just kidding.
my next thing is
I don't- Anyhow, go ahead.
I'm not. How do you word this? The butt shot.
Oh, shot placement.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Do what?
Shot placement. Texas heart shot.
yep. Fred.
What about it?
So Fred Bear and Chuck Adams are both advocates, or were both advocates.
Chuck, if you're
For-
listening, this is nothing personal.
No, absolutely not.
We love
It's
you.
up for
We
discussion.
love you.
In
being-
fact, come visit us and we'll discuss it
Yeah,
more.
we'll discuss it with you.
Yeah, we love
But-
your beanie.
The discussion being that that's an ethical shot. So Fred Bear basically argued that is as ethical as a vital shot. Like that is a vital shot because of all the arteries and the things, and because of that, most deer bleed well and
Die
they
quickly.
expire
Yeah.
fairly quickly.
So
Well, start right here. Have you ever Texas heart shot a deer?
yes. Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I've gut shot them, but
No, I'm
a
talking
true
straight
Texas,
walking away.
no.
Send it up the piper.
I will say this, and again, it's
So
not.
I wanted to
it's not-
start there. Go ahead, and
it's-
then I'll finish my thought.
It's not a shot I want to take. That's not a shot I want. But just when it did happen, it was, I'm going to say, extremely effective.
Yeah. So the two times, the one time I did it, it probably would make people mad. I jumped a deer, shot at him running straight away. As a kid, man, did I ever shoot a bullseye. And that deer went nowhere. Of course, that was a 20 gauge or 16 gauge slug. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Then I witnessed it one time with an arrow. And I mean, it was deadly.
Yes.
It was deadly.
That's what I found. The thing about it that I would tell you I'm opposed to taking that shot for the most part is it's a very small target. Your margin of error.
I think the
is-
window's small.
Yes. And so
It's a very small window.
Window is small.
Oh man, that's bad.
About this side.
yeah.
No, it's a little
Oh,
bigger than that.
yeah.
There's a yeah.
But what can happen there is if you're off by a whole lot, you don't have, when you take the broadside shot at the lungs of a deer, the margin of error, it's pretty big. Like if you're back, you're still in
Right.
it. If you're forward, you're still in it. High, low, you're going to probably still get that deer and maybe get it with no problem at all. But that shot there's just not a lot of room for error there.
Well, it's probably like comparable, like shooting at a basketball or shooting at a softball.
Yeah.
It's probably kind of the fair comparison.
Yeah.
You got a basketball sized target. If you can keep it in that basketball, good chance
On a broadside deer.
on a broadside deer.
Yes.
That deer, that's,
Yes.
you know, you're in the wheelhouse. That deer
Yep.
is going to bleed out. You're going to get that deer.
So if
and
you
then-
can shoot an 8, don't make that shot.
Yeah.
If you shoot a 10,
and then
good.
that Texas heart shot.
Yeah.
that's the
If you're in
12,
Texas, we love you.
according to Josh.
Yeah.
But it, you know what I'm saying? It went to a softball sized target, 12 ring.
Josh is awesome. Yeah.
We miss Josh.
Yeah.
But anyway, I seen it done with an arrow, and it was totally done by mistake. And I don't know how. I was trying to video for a guy. It was early morning. This individual has had some eye issues. When he was young, he had a detached retina, and so he's always had some eye issues. And so he shoots this buck. We get down, 45 minutes or so. We get down. We walk over, and of course he's colorblind, can't see blood. So he's like, I don't think I hit him. I was like, well, he left like he was hit. I've seen plenty of deer that, but I couldn't see where he hit him.
Yeah,
because we weren't in the same tree. And we were like 15 to 20, 30 yards apart, something to that nature. And I was trying to video with a little bitty handheld. Anyway, I walk around this treetop, and I mean blood.
Painted red.
Yeah. I was like, oh, you hit him. You hit him good. That's what I said, when I saw that blood.
Yeah.
I will say this. The track was, instead of like a double lung being that, 50 to 80 yard down, it was about 120 to 140 yards.
But was it easy to follow?
Oh man. I was like, dude, you had to heart shoot him. And then after it went 100 yards, I was like, man, I don't know.
Right.
He's running dead because there's too much blood. And it's the funniest thing. Somewhere, maybe I could find the footage. It's the funniest thing. We walk up to this buck, not a real big buck, just a decent little buck. We walk up to this buck, and I hear the person who shot him's dad was with us at this point. And he goes, well, where'd you hit him? In the video. And I walk around there, and it's just the fleshing sticking out of that deer's rear end.
Like another tail.
I'm like, he missed the 12 ring, Josh.
Yep.
He missed the 12 ring to the right by like that much.
Wow.
But I swore, I was like, you heart shot this deer or something. It looked like, the flow of blood was impressive. So I say all this to say, I don't know yet if I'm going to endorse this shot,
right?
But I've seen it twice personally. Did it once. Mine was with the slug.
Would you argue that it's an ethical shot, though?
That's a slippery slope.
If you can hit the softball size
because
target.
we've had this conversation about ethics, and you know how I feel about ethics,
right?
Like
it all changes if you're hungry.
It really does.
I guess the code of the hunter would say probably not the best shot to take.
No, I'm gonna have to vote it down as a.
Well, here, let me explain why I would prefer to not take that shot, and it's a totally different reason.
Makes field dressing a mess.
That's why. You know me.
Yeah.
You know me.
I don't know. We
elbows
didn't
deep
talk
in
about.
that.
I promise we didn't discuss that.
So
I have zero interest in being elbows deep in a gut
mess,
pile.
in a mess. Yeah.
That's been sliced all the way through.
Yes.
There's another aspect there too, and that is certainly valid.
Yeah.
There's another aspect there too that does bother me some, and that is when people who don't hunt some of what we do, it is still important to me to not disrespect.
Yeah.
And so
you feel like
the appearance is respectful.
Okay.
And so in the end, we are out there and we are killing an animal.
I think there's a lot of validity to that argument for sure.
Well, I just feel like there are certain guys that say, oh, I would shoot one in the head. I would shoot one in the neck. I would shoot one in the rear end. I would do whatever their circumstance is. There's a lot of that out there. And if you were the only one that saw that, and you were the only one that dealt with that, and no one else ever saw or knew, that's your business. Whatever. You decide what your ethics are when you're in the woods, and okay. But there's a whole world out that here's this conversation we're having, maybe, or on your way home, people see what you have, or whatever that may be, or hear the story later. You're at, telling
Yeah.
your buddy about the hunt, and there's, you're at the grocery store and there's people around. I don't know what. I'm just saying these scenarios, and I really, really hate to convey disrespect as sportsmen, because I think we're already painted that way anyhow.
I would agree with that.
And so I try to be as careful as I can. I know that there's people that tolerate my love for hunting and they do not agree with it, but they will listen and stop by the house and see the dozens of
Yeah.
animal
Carcasses.
carcasses and mounts and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they will even humor me a little bit. Oh man, look, you got that. Oh, okay. And they don't care a bit about it. In fact, some of them probably dislike it.
Yeah. Well, carcass is how they view it.
Yeah.
Like for someone who does not appreciate hunting, when we kill, they don't look at that as a trophy. They don't look at that as a positive.
No.
They look at that as something that either in a massively negative way, or just as someone who maybe gets,
right,
that they get enjoyment out of taking
right.
life away from something else.
And
that's where I think it's important. What you're saying is true, that we need to make sure we do it in a way that
I think we've.
Can I spin this another direction?
Yep, go ahead.
And this is not me endorsing the Texas heart shot.
Your wife's like, don't go there.
She just told you.
But now I got to pull my train of thought back in. But this is not me endorsing the shot. But if I step down because of someone thinks you shouldn't kill him, and if you're going to kill him, don't kill him that way.
Yeah.
That's a big step if you don't watch it. It creates slime on the steps.
A slippery slope.
Mossy steps that people fall and bust their keister. And who's going to be the one that busts their keister? You're going to be the deer hunter, because they're like, you shouldn't do. And then I say, well, I won't do that. You're at it. You shouldn't do this. Okay, I won't do that. Oh, while you're at it, next thing you know, we're in the house playing video games.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I see what you're saying.
For me, I'm not looking and don't want, and probably in the next 20 years, if the Lord tarries, won't take a rear end shot.
But there's people that feel the same way about a facing shot on an elk even.
Yeah.
And
and
other people that are like,
and almost any elk hunting Western person that grew up chasing elk looks at you and says, if you're not going to shoot one facing you,
you might not get one.
Get out the way.
Yeah.
I'll shoot you.
Yeah.
So it's in the eye of the beholder to some degree. Yeah. Now, those same people say, I will not take a frontal shot on an elk if he's past, 20, 25 yards.
Yeah.
Well, that comes back to your skill level, though, in a lot of cases, like, your ability. But I agree with you. And I don't necessarily, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, what I'm more concerned about is I don't want to just appear disrespectful.
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I have a passion and love whitetails. I mean, since a little boy, I can't drive down the road without staring out, just hoping I would see one standing by the road. And I don't want them to suffer, and I don't want to, do something stupid but
you don't want somebody who
don't know nothing about it.
Right.
And or doesn't like it anyway, and would be fine with me stopping for me to be like, oh, I'll do it your way.
Yeah.
No.
And I
go
I
play
agree
your
with
video
you.
games.
Yeah.
You go to Target and do your thing.
Take it easy on the gamers, man.
But he's got something going on about this.
No, I mean, I don't have, that's your thing. That's your thing. But I'm saying that's your thing.
Right.
And
let me do my thing.
Yeah.
You do your
and my thing, if things get bad, might save you. Your thing means nothing. Right? Am I right?
You're right.
When you get hungry, I might be able to feed you.
But your video game's not going to help me any.
Probably not.
It tastes like plastic.
And the more you cook it, the worse it tastes.
No, that's all joking. But the part that I'm saying a little bit with some seriousness.
Yeah.
That if I start taking cues and rules and regulations from the person that hates what I do and would love for me just to
Yeah.
stop it
Yeah.
because of their point of view,
I definitely can see that.
you know what I'm saying? Now,
Yeah.
that being said, I'm not even going to endorse it. I'm not saying that's the best shot. I think a frontal shot from the ground is a pretty good shot.
Not from a stand, though. I don't.
Not from a stand, tough, but from the ground, I think it's a pretty good shot. I've killed several deer that way with a bow. I killed my elk that way with my bow. But the difference is there's what, 2.5 feet of material to shoot through if you don't cut the femoral
Right on the way.
artery on the way through.
Mhm.
That you have to drive a shaft through. And I never want to set myself up for, I need to shoot through 2.5 feet of material before I get to what
Right.
kills him quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't wanna
That's
turn it
kind
into
of
a
the thing.
Cape
Let
buffalo.
me throw this out there, though. I
Throw it.
still respect a man who's willing to say, this is what I think's okay. And I don't care what you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, there's an element about that. Like, Uncle Ted's that way.
True.
He thinks what he thinks, and he's not going to apologize for it.
Right.
Mhm.
And there's even some within the hunting community that look at him and they're like, no, I'm not, I'm not going to entertain that. But there's an element of that I appreciate.
I do too. I do.
I just think
So I guess
someone
that
who
being
stands
said,
on
I'm
what
like-
they believe and they're going with it.
And here's the deal. I'm sitting here running scenarios through my head.
Right.
If I had a deer 12 or 15 yards from me and I'm on the ground and he faces straight away, I don't know. I might send it.
Yeah.
Hope it sticks.
Situational ethics.
You know what I mean? Right? Because
Yeah.
I can put it right underneath the tail
Yeah.
at 12 yards. I promise you I
I-
can. So I mean,
I've been there. I know what you're saying.
Would you?
Yeah. It's possible. It's happened before.
so that's yeah.
But
You go, whoops.
got him. The highest level of disrespect.
I'm dangerous in the moment because,
Yeah.
man,
Sure, when you're in the valley, I call it the valley of decision.
Yeah.
And I've hunted with Wes long enough, and he's hunted with me long enough. I've seen us both, because I've been over his shoulder videoing like he's in the valley of decision.
and he's like, don't draw,
It's over
because he
when
knows that
happens.
if I
Oh, yeah.
draw,
That's it.
No, it's all kinds of scenarios. I remember the time when the deer was staring at you, and I could tell you were like in the valley of decision.
Yeah.
Do I shoot? Do I wait? If I wait another second, he could be gone. If I shoot now, if I how it
Yeah.
is.
Oh,
You play 30 scenarios. People don't understand, but you run 15 to 20 scenarios through your head
Just
in
like
about
that.
10 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or 5 seconds, and you pick one of them and you go with
And you
it.
go with it.
And sometimes it's like perfect,
Yeah.
and the next time you're like, I really should have went with plan C.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know.
Well, here's the thing.
that squirrel got away.
Because we can predict the future as well as we'd like. So the deer's coming, he's 100 yards out. You're like, I don't know. Okay, he's at 90. Does he get closer than 50? Well, I don't know. Oh, he did. So do you wait till he's 15, or do you take him at 40 when he's standing broadside? Because will he get closer? We don't know.
Every time
You know,
You take the
you
40.
take the guarantee.
You take
Yep.
the sure
take
thing.
the one you have. Yep. That's my thought.
I've heard it both ways.
Well, I mean, and I'm not saying take a shot beyond your effective ability.
Yeah.
Because I
Sure,
don't consider
sure,
responsible.
Yes,
But I'm saying
but
That's kind
how
of
much we
stupid.
shoot.
yes.
So a 40-yard shot, like I told Lathan this morning, these 40-yard shots seem like chip shots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like we've been shooting a lot here. lately.
Hundreds
So-
of shots a week right now.
So a scenario I'll just throw at you that some people might say, "Oh, I wouldn't have taken that shot." Last deer season, if you remember, it was a warm deer season. In the last 2 days, it finally got cold. Remember how cold it got
Yeah,
there
yeah.
in January, the last couple days of bow
Yeah.
hunting. And I really didn't. I had a lot going on, and I really didn't hunt until literally that last Saturday afternoon. And I went over to one of the spots that we have
The regulars.
Yes.
Yeah.
And very cold, windy. Remember, it was
Mhm.
painfully cold.
Rough.
Yeah.
And the deer that would come in that day were very spooked. Like they just, every little thing made them nervous.
It's late season.
It was just a typical late season scenario. And one of the bucks that we had seen and got some photos of, not initially necessarily a target buck, but yeah, it was kind of the sort of thing for me. I decided when I got there that day, I was there was a few different bucks that if they showed up, I was going to go ahead and finish out the season, and that was going to be that. If I could get a shot and make a shot. Well,
Yeah.
the deer came in. He got to 52 yards. Now, there are a lot of guys that say, "Oh, that's a long way." It is a long way, but we do a lot of shooting, and
Yeah.
even out to 70 yards, I can hit that
Yeah.
pretty much all day. So I'm not that worried. So at 52 yards, it stood there, and I thought, well, what's it going to do now? Is it some of the deer didn't get any closer than that, and they cut off to the left just the way he was facing,
Yep.
and he was gone. And so there's the value decision. Do I do this? Do I wait? And then I felt a little breeze at my back. And the ozonics is good, but there's just, they don't need much.
There's
that
some
time of
smells that they don't cover.
year. Yeah, I'm a
The
smelly
essence
dude.
of Doug.
Yes, exactly. And so I went ahead and drew back and took that shot and killed the deer. Now I could have waited for the 20-yard shot that I'd really like.
Mhm.
But
knowing the spot you were at and knowing what those deer were doing, that deer was never going to give you a 20-yard shot.
and that was the conclusion I
Yeah.
came to as well. I'd rather had that, but the deer was dead within sight. It was quick. It was done. And on a very cold day, it ended the season, and it was good. Now, some people would say, oh,
I wouldn't
52
take
yards.
that
I
shot.
wouldn't take that shot. That's too
Man,
far.
that bugs
And-
me.
Yes, right. But for me,
I've
I
had-
knew when I drew the bow back, that is a shot. I don't want to say this to sound arrogant. That's a shot I'm going to make.
Yeah.
Like, now things can go
it doesn't
wrong.
bug me that someone says, I wouldn't have taken that shot.
It's the
No,
timbre of their voice.
Yeah.
It's all subject to that. If it's the judgment, yes.
Yes.
But it doesn't bug me just the fact that they wouldn't have taken the
No,
shot.
maybe they shouldn't take
probably
that
don't
shot.
need
Right.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to throw judgment and shade,
Yeah.
that's a different thing.
But that was a
And you
decision
can-
to make then. You know?
Anybody with a little perception can generally pick that up.
Yeah. Well,
Because why did you even
Uh-oh.
voice it? Why'd you even
Mhm.
say anything? You know what I mean?
You just gotta love that guy,
I
man.
know.
I've been like watching the video. I'm holding the deer by the head, showing somebody the picture, and they tell you they wouldn't take that
yeah,
shot.
that was unethical.
You know, and I'm like,
But the deer's dead. It worked.
you know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so but you miss those shots too.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Oh no.
But you
I-
miss 20-yard shots.
Correct.
And you
So,
miss I've missed 10-yard
Yep.
shots, you know. so-
Sadly, it has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
Wow.
you're probably more likely to miss those close ones.
So you
So-
know, and that was a 52-yard shot. Now you've all done this as well. There's a lot of shots a whole lot further than that get made, and so I mean, but just the same, you know, there are seasons I shouldn't have taken that shot years
Yeah.
ago when you know, I just wasn't as proficient at it as I am now. I shouldn't have taken a 52-yard shot.
Yeah.
But in that instance, I was very confident that the result was going to be what it was. And you know, maybe I would get surprised and I would take that shot and I would miss. And I think, oh, I should have waited till he got to 20.
Yeah.
Which, like you
But
said,
that's the game.
That is
That's
the game.
the game.
That is the game.
Yeah.
So,
Well, guys, we've had a lot of good discussion this evening. We got a straight up killer that's watching this evening, Luke Thompson. We
Yeah.
appreciate you tuning in.
yeah.
Josh Eblin. We've had several guys tuning in and talking. Angie
Angie Cole.
Cole also tuned in.
Which one of us is going to run for office?
Well, I assume she meant Lathan.
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
the prettiest. So
Yeah.
I've
He's
already-
got look best dressed
Yeah.
for
Right.
sure.
I'm already in an office.
that is true. So, yeah, man, you really rattled my brain there when you said that. So
Hey,
last
doesn't
week
take
we Guys, you're not helping, Douglas.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Last week, the end of the episode, we talked about giving away some seed, and we were supposed to do that last Friday, and we never did.
Shame,
I
no,
ended up doing the drawing, and Angela Cole was the one that won the drawing. So,
Well, she's watching you
Angie,
tonight.
if you're watching, we've got some seed for you, and we would love to make sure that your husband goes out and plants it. So,
Your husband's loving this prize.
And if
That's
you'll put
right.
it in the comments, probably just drop it off on the way home, right?
yeah,
Hey, we could toss it out the window
we
and
could.
pass.
Put it in
We'll,
the mailbox.
we'll throw- maybe it'll seed itself.
Yeah, scatter and grow, scatter and grow. Well, at the end of this, I want everybody to know Luke's comments. I could care less if you want to use a crossbow, use a rifle. Do
Yep.
it within the confines of whatever the law is, and there's
Yeah.
all it is an opinion. We're all
Not
entitled
the
to
law.
them.
The law is not,
Not
an
an
opinion.
opinion.
Don't do that.
Yeah, right. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Do it within the law. What we think about it is our opinion. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong. You know, it's up for discussion.
That's right. We appreciate everybody tuning in. If you guys wouldn't mind, do things that we try and hit you up every week about. Like, share, comment. If you guys wouldn't mind, go to YouTube, subscribe on there, hit the bell. We're really trying to build this, and we know that the more engagement that we have from you guys, Angie, we love you. The more engagement we have from you guys, the better it is for not only us, but also we stay, we know who's staying in contact. So we appreciate it. We're trying to grow it. So this for this evening has been up for discussion. This is episode 20 and hot under the camo. You're not hot under the camo yet, Lathan?
Not too bad,
Yeah.
How does he do it?
man.
Man,
When you
I'm
look this
hot, right?
good, it breathes.
Man, I don't know if anybody's
Made of
watching.
some fine
but
materials.
Yeah.
you,
Fine
you
material.
are the shirt.
Well, both.
Guys, we appreciate you watching, and we will see you next week on Up for Discussion.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.